Yay, yay.
Okay.
Energy, energy, energy. I was trying to convince Paul to play the music, and he's just like, there's just too many things that can go wrong. And I'm like, Paul, we can play
Right.
the music.
Silent disco. Yeah, right.
Slowly play it. Play the funky music. Welcome, Upsiders and extended family, to our very first session of the UpSkill series. I'm Rukmal De Silva, your host for tonight, and I help to manage partnerships here at Up. If you've managed to find yourself here, you probably know what UpSkill is about. Basically, we've partnered with some awesome organizations across Australia to provide you with practical life skills that we hope will help you to thrive in today's constantly changing and ever-shifting world. It's absolutely no accident that today the focus is on your mental health. And we've partnered with the legends at the Mind Room, who for the next 45 minutes or so will take you through their insights around creating a healthy mental health practice. As with everything at Up, we absolutely love to hear from you. So if you have any questions during the live session, feel free to drop them into the YouTube live chat or flick us a message on Twitter using the hashtag #TMRUpSkill. The team's keep an eye on these and will try to answer as many of these as possible towards the end. So I think that's all from me. I'm going to place you in the capable care of the Mind Room team. Over to you, Dr. Joe.
Thank you so much, Rukmal. So hello, everybody. I'm coming to you from Hobart. I'm just here in my little home at the base of Mount Wellington, Kunyani. And on that note, I wanted to just acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise the continuing connection to land, waters, and community. I pay my respects to them and their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. And welcome to all of you. I hope we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight, but also talk about some of the ideas that come up around our mind and mental health and this very strange time that we are living in. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and you should right now, if our technology is doing everything it's meant to be doing, you should be able to see the slides that we have for this session. So these are strange times, and as we come to terms with our lives in the era of COVID-19, it's really put the spotlight on what matters most. You know, our health, our financial security and freedom, and our relationships and connection to each other. So tonight is this opportunity for us to explore ideas about the human mind and how we can work with it to move beyond just surviving and thriving and learning how to thrive in modern life. As Oscar Wilde said, to live is the rarest thing. Most people exist, that is all. So how do we move into really thriving? That's the question that we want to explore. Anyway, to get us started and to get us into the mood, what I thought we could do is just a 3-minute meditation. Now, don't worry if you've never meditated before, this is painless and simple. It's nothing magical or mystical. It's just an everyday experience. If you do have a magical or mystical experience, then you can thank me later. However, it's also not sleep. So if you do find yourself falling asleep, it's probably telling you something, which is that you are tired. And lastly, we're not trying to find an empty mind while we do this practice. It's really just noticing whatever turns up for you. So let's get into it. We're only going to be doing this for about 3 minutes. Actually, while I've got you, before we start, we're also going to be running a poll afterwards, and we'd love you to contribute and give us an answer to a question we're going to put on the screen. The link to that poll was in the description for this. but we'll also show it straight after the meditation so you can jump on and give us some feedback. So if you're ready to join me, let's just sit quietly, maybe put your feet on the floor if you can to ground yourself. If you're lying down, that's fine. And letting your eyes close. And I'm going to be here with my eyes closed as well. And I want you to bring your attention in to your breath, noticing the air in and out of your body. And as you breathe, just slowing the breath down. On the out breath, letting go of any obvious tension or holding on that may be in your body or in your mind. And just anytime you notice that your attention wanders away, maybe goes to sounds around you, or gets caught up in thinking about what's for dinner tonight, or something that happened earlier today, or what you've got on tomorrow, I want you just to notice where you are and gently, kindly bring it back to the breath. You may need to do that once or 50 times. Each time, just note the habits of your mind and then gently bring the attention back to the breath. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do here is just look beyond the breath. I want you to scan through your body and notice how you're feeling right now. Is there any emotion present? Are you feeling pleasant emotions or unpleasant emotions? Maybe quiet, low energy ones like calm, peace, or boredom. Or maybe high energy ones like frustration, excitement, anger. So just checking in and noticing what's there. There's no right or wrong here. It's whatever's present for you today. And while you're there, if you know what the name of this emotion or feeling is, I want you to say hello to it. So, hello, boredom. Hello, peace. Hello, joy. Hi, anxiety. And taking a moment to thank your mind and your body for letting you take this pause to check in and see how you are. And on the next breath in, we're going to open our eyes, come back to the screen, and maybe have a stretch. All right. Thanks for joining us on that. And some of you are super fast. You're already onto the poll and responding to the question, which is, how are you feeling today? What's going on for you? And seeing how the people around us are doing. So on this word poll, you'll notice that the words that are coming up larger are the ones that are being repeated. So we have a bit of overwhelm and depression and tiredness, and we also have good, chilled, keyboard. Thanks, keyboard. Frustrated, nervous, optimistic, You know, there's a whole smorgasbord of emotions that are going on for people right now. And it's really important just to acknowledge this. To see how our community is. And not surprisingly, there's a fair bit of frazzled and cabin fever and worried coming up in amongst all those other more positive or optimistic or upbeat emotions. I'm just going to take us back to the slides. Thank you for joining us on that little journey, and hopefully we might be able to make a bit of a shift for some people if you are finding that you're struggling a little bit. So that was a little mindfulness of emotions. Then we're going to come back to this idea of mindfulness a little bit later on as well, because it's a really good technique for checking in and seeing how we're doing. And I think that that's what this time in COVID has really done for a lot of us, is give us a big pause, a chance to look at our lives, our lifestyles, to consider what really matters to us. And the question that kind of comes out of all of this, and one that we see in the consulting rooms of our practice at the Mind Room, is this question of, am I normal? And the answer to that, well, probably, but what is normal anyway? We have a range of people coming in asking this question, and a lot of the time what I think is going on for people is that they don't actually understand how their mind and their body works. And so they become really concerned because they're noticing shifts in the way that they're feeling, or shifts in their emotions, and go, oh my God, panic, what's going on? Is this okay? And if we learn how to work a little bit better with our mind and our body, then we wouldn't probably pathologize it. Now, this is not to say that there aren't people out there that are struggling with depression and anxiety and trauma and a whole range of mental health issues. But for a lot of us, it can probably be alleviated by knowing a few things about what helps us to function and why the mind does some of the things that it does. So I'd like to talk about two little quirks of the human mind that might be of interest to you, and perhaps how we can approach them in this time. So one of these particular quirks is something called the negativity bias. And if you haven't heard of this before, you would most definitely have experienced it. The negativity bias is this bias within the average human brain. So for most people, not everybody, but for most people, we will tend to see or notice the bad much more easily, much more readily than we do the good that's in our experience. And so we find that we need to balance up this kind of taking in of the bad news, the threat, the dangers, the worries. We need a lot more attention on the good in our life. So this negativity bias has been well researched by academics. And then I think the thing that's really interesting here is seeing how it plays out in our own lives as well. How often is it that someone asks you a question about something good that's going on in your life, and pretty quickly it's turned around to the problems with that? I know my mum is pretty awesome at being able to do this. When I tell her some good news, like, hey mum, I got a promotion at work, it's immediately, oh, Joanna, are you going to be okay? Do you think you're going to manage the extra responsibility? And what's it going to mean for getting enough exercise? So very quickly she can turn it into what's the threats or the dangers around it. I know that she does that from a space of love, but it can still be a little bit frustrating. So this negativity bias, it plays out in our lives what's happening is that evolution has kind of made this bet, yeah, that we are going to have to be tuned into threat and danger. So if we can anticipate threat, danger, the bad things in life, then we're going to be able to respond to them quickly, and we're going to survive. So it's a survival bet, yeah? Anyway, turns out that the threats that we used to experience were things like lions and tigers wanting to eat us. Not so much anymore. Now the things that are worries to us are less immediate and less physical. Not always, but the balance has absolutely shifted. And now it's more, we have this stress response or this negativity bias kicking in when we get a letter from the bank or from a lawyer or from our utilities, and we know that we've got to pay something, or you've got a deadline coming up of some kind. So modern life, not so well adapted for this negativity bias and the triggers that it sets off in us. So learning what to do with that, and even just being aware of it, is the first step. So that's quirk number one, the negativity bias. Quirk number two. This one I have strongly in me. This is my inner control freak. Yeah. I love to control or try to control the uncontrollable. And I'm not alone, it turns out. There's a lot of us that try to mentally control the outcomes of our life, when really we are just thinking about things that we can do very little about. So let me break it down for you. What I'm talking about is the things you can control. You're absolutely the boss of this stuff. Yeah, this you get to look after 100%. We then have the things that we can influence. Now they can be fairly variable, and we can have really high influence over them or pretty low influence over them. And I'll show you an example in a moment. And then lastly, we have this final category, and all I can say is let it go. You have no control, you have no influence, let it go. For some reason, we keep trying to hold on to these pieces particularly. So let me run you through this one. Something that we have really no control over, and that's the weather today. I don't know what it was like for you, but here for me in Hobart, it was beautiful. It was blue sky, sunshine, a really gorgeous but crisp, cold kind of day. Anyway, I didn't mind that it was like that, but the day before it was pretty miserable, and it was raining exactly at my break when I wanted to go out for a walk, which is super annoying. Anyway, we don't really have any control or influence over the weather. However, we maybe have a little bit of an influence over other people's response to the weather. So if you have kids, or if you have a partner, if you had someone that the other day went, oh God, it's raining and now I don't get to go for my walk, that's really annoying, you can probably say, hey, it's not that bad, come on, just chuck on a parka, get on your raincoat and head out. So we can change their response or maybe influence it a little bit. And then the last one, the thing that you do have control over, and that's your response to the weather. Yeah. So what you decide in response to what's going on with the weather. And similarly, I think that there's, things about this whole kind of COVID experience that we have no control over. We have no influence over. And then there's things that we do. So that's why we're being asked to stay inside and to keep 1.5 meters away from others. And we'll be doing this slow integration back to work. And the piece, though, that we have real influence over is our response to this. And I think that does include making room for the uncomfortable emotions that come with it, but also recognizing that you don't have to stay there. Yeah, you can do things that can change the way you approach the situation that you find yourself in. So these are our quirks, and the message, I guess, around this is recognizing what is controllable, what's you can influence and what you have no control over. And remember, the big thing that you get to look after is your response and this moment. There's no cure for the past. We can't do much about what has happened. And it's pretty tricky to travel into the future, except for in your mind. But we can't get our bodies there to actually affect change. So your response, this moment. And you know what? For most of us, this moment, we're okay. Yeah, in this moment, we're okay. We're safe. You might have seen this before, but I think it kind of sums it up way better than I can. And it's the serenity prayer. So grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think this is where mindfulness really helps us in tuning in and noticing and seeing the difference between the things that we can change and the things that we can't, and learning how to accept or let go of those things that we can't. So the second kind of idea I'd like to talk to you about is this idea of completing the stress cycle, because in all of this and in our lives in general, most of us will experience stress. I'm pretty sure that you have experienced it before and will again. So this is not the last time that you will probably experience stress. And it turns out with stress, generally we know kind of what our levers might be. Things like, if I'm stressed, there's generally a stressor. So let's take a look and see what that stressor might be. So while I was sitting here and doing the meditation, I have a cat called Chico. Chico has been adapting to Hobart life. He went from being a Melbourne indoor cat, where he pretty much lived in a tiny little one-bedroom place, and for 7 years hasn't really gone outside or done much other than live in the city pad. Anyway, we've come down to Hobart and he's got all this space to roam. He's getting used to outdoor life. He's met our local possums. He doesn't love them, but they also love to come out at about the same time as when I was meditating with you. So I'm sitting there trying to run that meditation, and Chico is scratching away at the door, trying to get out. I don't know if you could hear it, but I certainly could. And that created stress for me. I could feel it rising in my body. And so my immediate response is address the stressor. So I wanted to throw a pillow at him. However, I was a bit concerned that that would disrupt the vibe. So I didn't. And I decided to let it go and to hope that, you know, you would let that fade into the background. So we have stresses in our lives, maybe not as simple as the cat wanting to get outside to go say hi to the possums. And we've got to make decisions about, is this a stressor that I can problem solve through? Or is it a stressor that I can maybe ask for some help around? So ask others for if there's resources that you don't have. You can remove the stress, and in really dire circumstances, I guess we choose to remove ourselves. So that might be if you find yourself in a toxic work environment, then you might get to a point where you go, this is really not a good values fit for me, and I am comfortable leaving this because I do not see how I'm going to change this situation. I'm now getting stressed because I need to plug in my computer. Give me 1 second.
Good.
There you go.
I like the live examples as well.
Yeah, thanks. Like my performance anxiety, I'm just kind of keeping it under control here. Yeah, rookie mistake 101, plug your computer into the power. So we have the stress, and we usually have techniques for addressing the stressor. The thing I never really got taught was that there was another part to the stress cycle, and that this part was really crucial if we are really to finish and release the stress from our body. And this is the release and the restore part. So you have a tough day at work, you come home, you leave those stresses behind. But just because you step into your home and it's safe and you're not dealing with those issues, it doesn't mean that you're not still carrying the stress in your body. So this is about how do we let it out of our body. And I don't know if any of you remember, there was a Mars bar advert, and it went something like a Mars a day helps you work, rest, and play. I'm not going to sing it to the little jingle, but you get my drift. Anyway, this is a slight variation of that. I'm not suggesting that you go do more work in order to release and restore your energy. Instead, what I'm going to suggest is that sometimes we just need to refuel. And there's that other chocolate bar, Snickers, that did the ad, which has Alf Stewart riding a BMX bike, and he crashes off a big jump and he's swearing his head off like Alf Stewart does. And then one of his young mates comes up to him and hands him a Snickers bar and says, "Here, eat this." And you're just not yourself when you're hungry. And we all know that kind of hangry thing. Well, it turns out that stress needs fuel. So sometimes it's as simple as eating and hydrating. We need a juicy brain. For our brain to work optimally, you need to hydrate. So it's not just about the body, it's the brain. And in fact, look at them. They're kind of, they're together, yeah? Head on shoulders. So we need to eat well, we need to hydrate, we need to look at what we're putting into our body. So taking in a lot of stimulants like caffeine and sugars, it's just not going to help you to function well or release the stress as easily. A little bit of that stuff, absolutely. But just being conscious of how much. The other way that we can complete the stress cycle, and you probably find that a good night's sleep, suddenly all that sort of weight drops off your shoulders. So we need to rest, and that might be through sleep. It also might be through meditation. And we know that meditation is key in helping us to regulate emotions and to manage our thinking and to restore the body. So it might be about sleep for you, it might be about meditating, or it might be about a really, really easy technique, something that we do every day, but maybe don't focus on, which is a breath. So the breath is direct access to your physiology. Yeah, it goes straight to your autonomic nervous system, and it sends it messages of either get ready to fight and run, or otherwise, it's okay, you can relax now, you can get on with digesting food and repairing cells, and how about we have a little bit of a snooze. The in-breath, you know, when you are scared, think about what you do with your breath when something scares you. You go, yeah, that quick, sharp in-entry of breath, and that wakes the body up and lets you know, be on alert, get ready. Now, when the thing that scared us maybe has passed, or we realized, oh, it actually wasn't what I thought it was, it's all fine, what do? We let go of the breath, we breathe out. And that out breath is key to releasing stress from our body as well. So just even doing a few minutes of deep, slow, calm breathing can help just regulate the system again. And lastly, eat, rest, and this one, equally important, play. Got to keep playing, yeah? Something happens to us as adults. We lose this incredible capacity to play that we had when we were children, and that is a big mistake. We need to bring back play. And one of the things I've absolutely loved about this whole isolation era is this sense of play that has come out in our community and been really visible. I don't know if any of you checked out the Facebook page for bin isolation outing, but it's people getting dressed up in their, you know, fancy clothes or just anything a little bit wacky to take the rubbish bins out, because the rubbish bins were going out more than us, it seemed, at certain stages. My favourite one was a guy who was dressed completely in an astronaut's outfit, and the caption that he had as he was out looking inside the bin with the whole regalia on was "No space in the bin." So I think people are finding ways to have fun with this. So play, whether that's through movement, through, you know, creating things, you might be into craft, or by connecting with your friends. So there you have it. Need to release the stress. Don't forget to do the release and restore phase of it. Eat, rest, play. So that was a little bit about coping with life and difficulties and the simple strategies that we can use. But I'd also like to talk about the idea of happiness and thriving. So Benjamin Disraeli, who was, this is a little known fact for you, Benjamin Disraeli was the Prime Minister of Great Britain, not once, but twice. So use that in your next pub quiz. Anyway, he said action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action. We need to do something. And it turns out that the science supports him on that as well. So what we know is that there's, and this is a very, very broad brush rule of thumb, there's a lot of nuances to it, but take on board this general idea that when we look at the research and what determines well-being, there seems to be three major parts to it. One is your genetic set point, so what you inherited from your mum and dad. So curse them or hug them, whatever's fitting for how you feel your happiness or well-being is in life. But part of it is about what we inherit, which is half the picture. So there's another smaller part of the picture, which is the 10%. Now that's our circumstances of our life. So that's things like how much money you have, how educated you are, whether you are married or not, or have children, how old you are. Now these are the things that often we're sold on by marketers and by other people, that these are the things that are really going to make the difference for us. And it's a kind of a tricky relationship. Absolutely, they have an influence. But something like money, for example, money is a really interesting one. We can buy happiness, it turns out. Money, particularly if you don't have enough to get you above the poverty line, will bring you freedom, safety, all the things that we need in life, a roof over our head, food on the table, the things that really matter. But once we get to a certain point, and in Australia, I think it's about $70,000, you don't get a lot more return for more income. Again, this is for averages across the population. There'll be people out there going, hell yeah, money absolutely makes me happy. I think that there's a relationship around what you do with your money, and the values that drive those choices as well. Anyway, so this makes up about 10% of the picture. And then the 40%, and this is the stuff that gets, you know, psychologists and behavior change specialists really super excited, because this is in that controllable bucket. Yeah, remember when we looked at what you can control, what you can influence, and what you can't? Well, this piece sits in that 40% intentional activity. This is what you think, what you feel, and what you do. So we're going to have a little play with that piece. And I'm going to take you through a wellbeing workout. So you may already have one, but I'm going to take you through a pretty simple 5-stage workout. But I want to ask you a question first of all. So who out there has a fitness plan? Now, I asked this of a lot of different groups, and you find that about 99% of people will put their hand up for, yeah, I got a fitness plan. When I ask people if they are able to execute their plan. A few hands drop down. So execution is the next level, and hitting the mark, getting that right. And the last piece I ask people is, okay, so say you don't have a plan. Do you think you'd be able to like let your friends, give your friends a couple of tips on how to get started on their own fitness program? And most people go, absolutely, we could do that. We could have a crack. Okay, so then who here has a mental fitness plan? Now, Meg, who you're going to meet at the end of this session, thinks that my little brain man doing his, I don't know what he's quite doing, is really, really ugly. I don't mind him. I think he's kind of cute. Anyway, who here has a mental fitness plan? And by that, I don't mean that you have a plan for your depression or anxiety or these things. This is about building capacity. This is about how you look after your fitness, not your illness. Far fewer hands go up when I generally ask this. I can't see if your hands are going up or not, so I will just assume that you are following the typical kind of trajectory when we ask these questions. And so the physical health sciences have done an amazing job at helping people to understand this and to look after their physical fitness. The psychological or mind sciences have done a pretty ordinary job because we've been so busy focusing on illness and what's going wrong with people. That negativity bias coming out again. So here we are. We want to address that issue. We want people to understand that you can look after your mental fitness. So I'm going to give you a 5-stage plan. You can do this alongside me. So it shouldn't take us that long, and it's certainly, you won't work up a sweat. You'll be fine. So the first stage in this plan is pretty simple. I want you just to take a moment to think about just one thing in the last few days that you're grateful for. Now, I want you to make it recent, so the last few days, and I want you to make it specific. So don't just do a sweeping kind of, my health, my finances, my family. I want it to be a moment. So for me, in the last 48 hours, I had, and please don't dob me in, I had a sneaky hug with my nephew. Yeah. I thought he was coming up to me to give me a fake hug, but he actually kept on leaning in, and the next thing I know, we're having a real hug. It's the first hug that I have had in 8 weeks. It was amazing. That is a moment I'm super grateful for. And maybe on the chat, you can share with us the things that you're grateful for. We'd love to hear what they are. What are you grateful for, Rockmal?
So last week, my mum sent through a care package of several lunches for the week. So I'm just grateful for Mum. She made
Go, Mum.
So
Shout out to Mum. Okay, that's step 1. Let's move on to step 2. Now, step 2, I want you to take a look at this little sentence, if it is a sentence. And if you're on the YouTube channel chat, jump in and tell us, what is it about this sentence? What is it? Do geese see God? If you're a grammar queen or grammar king out there, I'm sure you've already nailed it. And for those who are unsure, do geese see God is a palindrome. It spells the same thing forward as it does backwards. All right. Step number 3. I want you all to get your baby goats, get your yoga mat, and let's move. Movement, yeah? If you don't have a baby goat, that's fine. What I'd love you to do is just stretch your body and notice what that feels like. We'll do a bit of a shake it off, tay-tay style. But just move around a little bit because we've been sitting for a half hour now. Maybe you're out walking, but I've been sitting. Step number 4. Now, for this one, I'm going to get you to join me on a very particular type of meditation. It'll just take us a few minutes. But if you would like to, after you've moved around a bit, just settle back down again, and I'll invite you to close your eyes. And bringing your attention inward to your breath. And if you're up for it, popping your hands over your heart area. And I want you to bring to mind somebody in your life that's just easy to love. It might be someone that's in the household with you now, or it might be someone that you haven't been able to see. Whoever it is, it doesn't matter. It's someone that you've got a kind of easy, loving relationship with. Now, that may not be a human, that might be a pet. So whether it's your dog, your cat, your budgie, your granny, your partner, your child, we're just going to bring them to mind. And we're going to send them a little bit of loving kindness. So holding them in mind, I'm just going to give you some phrases that you can repeat. If you don't love these words, you can use your own words. So with this person in mind, may you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy and accept yourself as you are. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy and accept yourself as you are. And just noticing the warmth and love and gratitude in your own body as you send these wishes to this person or pet in your life. Okay, and on the next breath in, just letting your eyes open. Okay, we have 4 out of 5. So for the 5th step in your wellbeing workout, I want you, whoever that is, cat, dog, granny, mum, brother, partner, whether they're with you right now or they're some distance away, I want you to actually get in touch with them. So I want you to send them a message of love and kindness yourself, whether that's hugging the person that's in the room with you. So give them a hug. I think you're kind of strange walking up just out of the blue with a big old hug. Or send a message by text, SMS, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever medium you want to use. Even maybe write a letter, but reach out and let them know that you care. Give away some of that love and kindness. There you go. How are you feeling? 5-step wellbeing workout. I'm going to just unpack it for you, and then we're going to head over to Ruckmal and Meg and take your questions. So if you do have a question, pop it in the feed so we can respond in a few minutes. These ideas that I just showed you, like that was hopefully felt kind of nice to do. Maybe the palindrome was a little bit like, huh, what is this? I don't understand. Hurts the brain a little bit. But all of this was designed around evidence-based daily actions. So the UK government back in 2005 commissioned the New Economics Foundation, which is a think tank in the UK, to take a look at what the evidence told them around building wellbeing for individuals, but also for communities. They came back with a list, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. They started with 5 originally. It's expanded well beyond that. But then they went, we got these ideas, how do we translate it? And the translation has come through Action for Happiness. It started off in the UK. It does a community translation of these ideas into practical ideas for people to raise community wellbeing. It's alive and functioning in Australia as well. If you want to take a look, the web address is on the page here, actionforhappinessaustralia.org. They also have an Instagram account, which is Haptivist. And it encourages to take these daily actions in everyday life to build a more compassionate and connected world. So what were they? The first step there, I got you to notice. Remember that negativity bias? We're really tuned in to threat and danger. Well, we need you to get present and to notice what's happening right now. And often what's happening right now is absolutely fine. To also focus on the good more. We need to get at least 5 good moments for every bad or negative or threatening moment to balance out that bias. So be grateful, savor the small moments. We need to spend more time there to get the brain actively absorbing this. Learning, keep on learning. You've come here because you're already sold on that idea, I imagine, that you're curious about the world, that you want new experiences, that you want to grow. So keep on learning. I got you to move with a baby goat. So keep moving. I'm not talking about high intensity workouts like F45 or something along those lines. This is about daily movement. It's about incidental movement, and it's about joyful movement. So find the way that brings joy to you to keep moving your body, because your brain will love you for it. Connect. If you remember nothing else from this, you know, the biggest, I think, issue we're going to face as a nation moving forward is loneliness. The loneliness epidemic is real, and it is taking years off our lives. And it is really sad that it's maybe taken a global pandemic for us to find our humanity again, and for us to start this process of really deeply connecting with people, even though we physically maybe can't touch them. So connect, make time for family, for friends and community. Listen, share, play, but just take care of these relationships because they matter. And last, but absolutely not least, to give. Give your time, give your attention, give your kindness. It doesn't have to be grand sweeping gestures, but these small things really do matter. Giving away a smile is completely free. It's not only good for you as the giver, you get all the hits of endorphins that come from smiling, but it's good for the recipient as well. So find ways to give back. Here is a really simple recipe for your wellbeing workout. If you're interested in putting your own plan together, then we have a guide to support you. It asks you questions about, well, what are you currently doing in these areas? What would you like to do? What gets in your way and what helps? You'll find this, there'll be a link in the YouTube chat, but you can also find it on our Mindroom website in our library, where we've got a whole bunch of other little resources to give away as well to help you live a thriving, meaningful and connected life. That is all from me, Jo Mitchell. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I hope you got something useful from today. But I'm going to now hand back over to Rakmal and to Meg to come join us and answer some of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jo. So many nuggets of wisdom in there. I personally never actually even thought about a mental fitness plan, so it's given me a lot of ideas to kind of take from this. Meg, I know you've got a ton of questions that have come through. So I thought I'd kind of
Yeah.
turn it to you and you can kick it off.
Yeah, great. There's lots of questions coming through, and a few of them are pointing towards anxiety. So I just wondered, Joe, if you could give any recommendations for how people can manage anxiety at the moment.
So anxiety has a lot of meanings. So the first thing I think is trying to understand when we're talking about common garden variety anxiety or more clinical anxiety, and to kind of separate those two things out. I think going and seeing a health professional is really, really a great place to start. If you're not sure about that idea, then I would jump on really reliable sources like Beyond Blue, Black Dog Institute, and take a look at their resources. Lifeline as well. Lifeline's a great one, 24/7. You can call and have a chat to anyone, anytime,
And they're
to
not
talk.
I was just going to say, and those services, Joe, they're not just for people who are in a crisis, are they? Other people can call.
Absolutely. Even if you're just worried about a friend or a family member and want to just talk it through with someone, call. If you're kind of toing and froing, call. However, anxiety, if it's garden variety anxiety, the first thing I'd say, get it out of your head. Get it out of here, put it down on paper. It's amazing the difference it makes when you articulate it. So on paper, or share it with a friend. That can make a massive difference. But when we leave it in our head, it sort of goes round and round, a bit like, in the washing machine, and it's all a jumble, and you think you find a way through it, and then you haven't, and you go over it again. So circuit breaker, out of your head, on paper, or have a chat to a friend.
Thanks, Joe. There's a couple of questions as well around how we might be able to support others. And I know that we're seeing, our kind of entire worlds come into one space, and a lot of people are living, with and on top of a partner, that they might not have experienced that before. Can you offer any advice on how to support a partner and how to maintain, good relations just through this period?
First of all, highly recommend Esther Perel. If you haven't already got onto that, then listen to her podcast. She's doing some fantastic work around relationships and understanding how to look after your relationship in this really difficult time. Also, you can jump onto the Mind Room blog page. We've got a whole bunch of resources. One of our specialists in this space, Owen Spear, recently wrote a little piece for us and a recommendation for a bunch of resources. But my number one tip is be kind. Just be kind. Be patient and be kind to each other, because this will pass. So I think being kind, being patient, and seeing if you can find new routines and structures to separate out your spaces a little bit, or to negotiate who's going to be where at what time. But when else fails, be kind and think before you speak.
Cool. Joe, you mentioned routines just there. Piper sent in a question asking if you have any tips on how to create these routines in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we know is, and this is back to the control freak in us, right, is that routines and structures give us a sense of, I've got this. I can kind of like hold together the uncertainty and the chaos. So they're really, really helpful. A lot of our routines have been thrown out the window because our lives are looking so different. So I think it's important to maybe take time to stop and sit and think about, right, what kind of routines and structures can I bring into my life? So for example, for me, my routine now is wake up in the morning, turn the heating on, let the cat out, go to my kettle, make myself a cup of tea, stop, sit down and take a look at what's in the rest of the day. And that really sets me up for success. I also absolutely take a walk. So that's an essential part of my day. because I know that that's good for my well-being. And I've also worked out little kind of rituals around, at night time, if I do watch Netflix or something, I've started knitting because I find that really mindful and it keeps my hands off my digital devices. So yes, I am watching a movie and knitting at the same time, but it stops me also like jumping on and checking and comparing my life to others and reading all the scary news about what's going on.
Cool. We had another question come in from Luke, and he talks all about job satisfaction. He just wants to know, what role does that really play in kind of well-being, and what can you do if it's not great?
Yeah. Listen, we spend so much of our time at work. It's important, I think, that you invest the right amount of energy or time in it. So for some people, work is just going to be a means to an end, a means to their life outside. So make sure you keep it in check with that. However, if you're not that person, then I think finding either a role or a company where the values meet your values, that goes a long way to making work satisfying. If you're not satisfied with what you're doing, I think you've got to take a look at it and go, okay, is it about the role that I'm doing? Is it about the culture that I'm doing this in? Or is it what are the factors? So I'd stop, do some analysis, work out what's going on. And then I think from there, that helps you decide, well, which direction am I taking next? Have either of you ever been in a job that was unsatisfying?
I've been pretty lucky. Definitely not up, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I've been pretty lucky through my career. I've had roles in finance, and then I had my own company in digital marketing, and it's all been about the growth. So I kind of find that sometimes you get to a point where you plateau and you don't learn, or you're not doing as much as you think you can, and then that's kind of where the satisfaction shifts, rather than it being a cultural issue. Like the people I work with have been phenomenal.
I agree. My points of dissatisfaction have been when I've stopped learning, actually. So it's always interesting to me that learning is one of the critical aspects of well-being. So when I stop learning and growing in a job, then you just kind of feel like you're on repeat. And actually that ties into a question that's just come in. Amy's asked, life in our routines has begun to feel monotonous. How can we reignite joy in our routines right now?
This is harks back to, there's something called the hedonic treadmill, right? Humans adapt. We think we're going to be terrible at adapting. Like if anyone said to you, how would you go in a pandemic? Or how will Australia go in a pandemic? You're probably like, oh my God, we're all going to be terrible at it. But look at us go. We adapted. And now what might have been a little bit uncertain and anxiety provoking in the beginning, we are now getting bored. This is because we adapt. We adapt more readily and easily to good news than we do to bad news. But as human, we do definitely adjust to our surroundings and go, okay, no threat, no danger, I'm actually okay, this is going to be all right. So if you want to bring a little bit of spark back into your routines, then you need to vary them up. You need to find a little bit of novelty there. So think about, well, okay, how can I do this a little bit differently so that the brain switches on again, because you're probably switched off to it by this stage. Think also doing gratitude practices can really draw your attention to those moments that are really sweet or bright in your week and give you clues about what you might need more of. But most importantly, play and have fun. Like just laugh, like watch something funny. Watch your cat trying to jump off, what was that, a car onto the balcony. I don't know if anyone else laughed, but I pissed myself laughing over that one for several minutes when I saw it.
Thanks, Jo.
I don't know. What do you do? What do you do to spark up your routines?
I actually bought a new board game recently, which is sounds incredibly nerdy, but that's been amazing for someone. Someone who's kind of wants to get off the screen at the end of the day as well. I'm finding, it's quite overwhelming working every day with a screen. I wanted to do something that wasn't that and entertain a 9-year-old at the same time. So that's that's been really fun and competitive and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah.
Very good. Speaking of getting off the screen, we do have a bunch of other questions that I'm seeing coming through at the moment. What might be better is if we kind of group those up into general themes, and we'll send through an email to all the people on this this session, kind of just going through those themes. I think that could work pretty well. Otherwise, we've kind of run out of time here. So I just want to thank Dr. Joe and Meg, obviously, for everything today. Thank you all for being here. We absolutely love advocates at UP. And don't forget, next week we've got another session with the amazing Victoria Devine from Shoes on the Money. So until next time.